Hi everyone and welcome back. In today's video I'll be testing out the Arrtx acrylic markers which I was kindly sent to try out. This is actually my first time using acrylic markers, which is a bit surprising since I enjoy mixed media. I usually work with acrylic paint and a brush, so I assumed the experience would be similar, but I'm really glad I got the chance to try this because as I experimented with them, I discovered so many interesting possibilities. So I want to share my thoughts on this set with you. The set comes with 48 markers and you also get stickers with numbers on them. I'm not entirely sure why, but I assume it's for organizing them however you like. I actually enjoyed sticking them onto the markers while swatching the colors. It was surprisingly satisfying. Even though I'm not someone who usually focuses on organizing things perfectly, I like this little detail. The markers are arranged in a specific order, and even when I mixed them up, it wasn't too hard to recognize the colors. Only 2 or 3 shades were quite similar, so I had to take a closer look, but overall swatching them was a smooth and enjoyable process. One thing I noticed right away is that the colors have a pastel-like quality. They are vibrant, but they also have a softness to them, almost as if each color was mixed with a bit of white. Now, I personally love bold contrasts and deep colors, especially when coloring, so I was curious to see how this would affect my usual style. I tested them on very thin paper and nothing bled through to the other side. They're also really easy to work with, so I think they could be a great option for coloring books. The finish is matte and looks beautiful, and the actual swatching process was really satisfying. I couldn't wait to get started. I decided to color a small illustration with fine details in Johanna Basford's book, Rooms of Wonder. For this piece, I wanted to use a stronger color on the hat and try to bring out some vibrancy. Right away, I started experimenting with layering different shades to create highlights, but I found the marker lines a bit distracting since I'm used to achieving smoother transitions between colors. So I decided to bring in a brush to see if I could blend them. After a few tries, I realized I had about 3 seconds to soften the transition with a bit of water and a thin brush before the marker dried completely. But once I got the timing right, I absolutely loved the effect. I couldn't stop using the brush. It made blending so much more enjoyable. I also discovered that these markers are great for covering black outlines in coloring books. I didn't need any extra tools, just the lighter markers, and that alone made me realize I would definitely be using them for future coloring projects. But after coloring a few of these little details, I realized that not everything was perfect for me. As I suspected, since I love dramatic colors and strong contrasts, these more pastel shades didn't quite give me the depth I was looking for. I wanted to create a magical glow around the hat and on the table, but achieving that with these colors was quite challenging for my coloring style. At that point, I started thinking that maybe I chose the wrong illustration for this particular set, considering how soft and muted the colors are. On the positive side, I found that adding highlights was incredibly easy and looked beautiful. Simply layering lighter markers on top of darker ones gave me instant highlights exactly where I needed them. Also, coloring small details like the jars on the table was much easier compared to using watercolors or similar mediums. I usually rely on colored pencils for these tiny details, but now acrylic markers feel like a total game changer for this type of work in coloring books. I also experimented with a background just to see what was possible. It can be done, but I'd say it works better for smaller areas. I probably wouldn't use these markers for large backgrounds unless I wanted a smooth, solid color like black, which actually applies really well and effortlessly. Since this illustration wasn't turning out quite the way I envisioned, I decided to bring in colored pencils to see if they could add more depth and contrast. The pencils did help a little, but I quickly noticed that too many layers of acrylic marker create a surface where the pencils don't glide as smoothly. Still, they blended together fairly well, which is good to know for future projects. At this point, though, I just wanted to wrap up this page quickly so I could move on and try something different. This time, I wanted to pick an illustration that would better suit these softer, calmer colors, something more natural, so I went with Leila's Walk in the Woods and chose a simple Lily of the Valley illustration. Since this page was much larger and the illustration itself had bigger elements, coloring the leaves felt incredibly smooth and effortless. I truly enjoyed every little detail. I also kept a wet brush on hand for the long leaves to gently soften the transitions, and everything blended really nicely. The transitions weren't perfectly seamless, but honestly that's what I ended up loving about it. Up close you can still see the marker strokes, and depending on what you're coloring, the texture can actually make the illustration look more artistic. One thing I really liked was how effortlessly lighter colors layered over darker ones. This made it so easy to fix mistakes, which made the whole process much more relaxing. This time I feel like the colors suited the illustration perfectly. At first I worked only with the markers, but later I added a bit of colored pencil on top to refine the shadows and make them look smoother and more defined. I have to say, coloring with acrylic markers was truly a beautiful experience. I loved working on the details and how effortlessly they applied to the paper. At first, I wasn't sure if the slightly more pastel colors in this set would suit my coloring style on their own. And if you're someone who enjoys bold, vibrant colors, keep in mind that you might need to combine them with other materials to achieve that look. However, as I continued using them, I realized that these markers are fantastic for adding highlights, covering black lines in coloring books, and filling in small details that would otherwise take much longer with regular pencils or a brush. They also work well with colored pencils as long as the marker layers aren't too thick. The set itself offers a lovely selection of colors that blend nicely with other mediums. Overall, I found these acrylic markers to be a really relaxing and enjoyable tool for coloring. You can find all the details about this set in the video description, and if you already own these markers, I'd love to hear your experience. What do you use them for in your coloring? Thank you for watching and see you soon.